Welcome everyone to this week's office hours session. I want to welcome Aakarsh Sethi back. Aakarsh is our Senior Product Manager here at Infinix. And this week we're going to talk about how providers can extract value from unstructured data. Obviously, there's a treasure trove of data there, but often providers don't know how to really access it or utilize it. And Aakarsh is going to help us learn how to do that. So welcome back, Aakarsh.
Happy to be back, Kate.
All right, let's jump right in. Can you kick us off by just defining what is structured versus unstructured data?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of people now have started hearing these terms, right? With the advent of new technologies and AI, these words are becoming more common in our dictionaries. So structured data and unstructured data can be defined as, so we'll start with structured data, right? Structured data is highly organized data that can be easily and naturally stored in specific formats. And we're referencing specifically to databases and computers right now. Unstructured data, on the other hand, couldn't be more different, right? So it's not organized and cannot be as easily and naturally stored in, let's say, a machine database. Let's give you some examples to visualize what this might look like. So conceive an order form, right? But not in a format that you're typically used to seeing it, but think of an order form in an Excel sheet, right? Where all the key critical fields of the order, such as patient name, reason for exam, physician names, are headers, and then the values are provided right below it in the cells. Right? This is a great example of structured data that can be easily ingested by computers, by machines, and stored very naturally without any effort. Unstructured data, on the other hand, is far more common. In fact, in healthcare, there's different citations that quote up to 80 to 90% of data in EMRs, EHRs is actually unstructured data. It's not hard to see why, because now look at an order form that you're used to seeing, right? Whether it's a fax or an e-fax, but it's a form where sentences are written describing the reason for exam, what the patient is coming in for, and so on and so forth. So essentially same information, but in a very different format, right? So that is an easy way to distinguish structured and unstructured data.
Thanks for explaining that. What are the challenges that providers are seeing associated with unstructured data?
Right. So I think we can pick up from where we just left off, right? So we said that we looked at an example of an order form in starkly different formats. So one very structured format, the other in an unstructured format. Now, the difference is in the formats, but the information essentially is the same, right? To a human being who is looking at, let's say, an order form with sentences or an Excel sheet, is going to be able to interpret the meaning behind it fairly easily, right? However, for a machine, it couldn't be more different, right? For a machine to look at that order form in the format that you all are familiar with, it's harder to ingest that, right? Now, for humans to be able to interpret that language isn't necessarily hard, but to be able to do that with the volumes of faxes and referrals, for example, that facilities see, can be a major burden, right? So that's why we leverage machines, that's why we leverage computers. So it's not a very friendly format for computers. Now, where does that leave us, right? That leaves us in a place where, because we aren't able to store this information in a very structured format, we aren't able to utilize it in ways that we can extract value. And the two major ways that I see this is, one is in terms of analytics, and the second one is in terms of process automation.
In what ways does unstructured data affect healthcare providers?
Yeah, so let's continue talking about the use cases of extracting value from different types of data elements, right? So in a structured document, let's say that Excel sheet, which had order information, once that's ingested into your EMR, EHR, RIS list, you're easily able to query that, get a list of number of patients you've seen, the different types of exams, the frequency of exams. So you're able to drive analytics on structured data very easily. On the other hand, if you just have a fax of a referral form, it's much harder to derive analytics on, what are the different referrals, different types of referrals that you've obtained, what are the different exams that are being ordered, and so forth. So analytics is a big use case where unstructured data really depreciates value for healthcare providers. I want to focus a little bit more on the process optimization part of this. So we look at referral intake as an example. So today, majority of referrals that providers intake is in the form of faxes, right? 90% of healthcare providers and facilities still use faxes. In fact, I believe I saw a statistic recently that said anywhere between 9 to 15 billion fax pages get processed in the United States within healthcare, right? The average time taken to process a fax is about 8 minutes. What is this time devoted to? It's time taken to intake the fax into your practice, to look up the details, and then to input those details manually into your practice management system, into your information system, and so forth, right? There's estimates on the cost associated with this as well, because it's such a manually intensive process. Each fax is estimated to cost about $6 to $8 to process. Right? Now imagine if this entire intake process was automated, right? Now, the only reason why we can't do this is because of the nature of this data, right? Scanned images coming through faxes couldn't be more unstructured than that. And if you look at some of those referrals, there's handwritten notes on top of different tabular formats of information. It just becomes really hard for traditional forms of machines to be able to intake this process. But if they were able to do this, it could really expedite the intake process and thus streamline patient access.
So what is the best approach? How do providers start to extract value from this unstructured data? Where's the best place for them to start?
Right, and I think the place to look at is technology, right? Recently, a few years ago, in late 2015, 2016, there were real significant advancements in natural language processing that allowed machines to really look at unstructured information, look at language as communicated normally by human beings and derive meaning out of it, right? NLP, which is a subsegment of artificial intelligence. This really allows us to solve some of these problems that unstructured data poses to us. So let's look at an example of referral intake. Referrals can have sentences on, let's say, what is the different exam that the patient is coming in for, is referred for, what are the reasons behind that exam, who's the physician, all the patient details, and so forth. So if there was technology, which now NLP can do, can really mimic a human's understanding of what are the elements that need to be identified and extracted, then that makes our life a lot simpler. So NLP can then look at a referral, identify that, hey, this is the patient, this is the exam that they're coming in for, and simply extract those elements from an entire referral form and then store it into a structured format, right? So now once they are in a structured format, you can then perform, get the value from analytics or from a more streamlined process, because analytics, you can now query what are the different types of exams that patients are coming in for, how often do certain demographics of patients come in, and so forth. But more importantly, that entire referral intake process can be optimized through this kind of automation, so that, for example, you've extracted that a specific patient is coming into your facility. You can then add rules to check if that patient already exists in your practice or not, and then based on that, either create a new patient record or just add an encounter under an existing patient. So this really helps you extract that value, which you weren't able to do that before. Within the referral intake use case, there's another element or another piece of technology that enables this process, and it's called OCR, which is optical character recognition. What it does is it looks at these faxes, these scanned images, and converts that into machine readable text. Once it does that, then we use natural language processing to essentially look at the information, understand it, and extract the key elements that we're looking for.
So I think you touched on this a little bit, but how can a technology solution help improve the fax intake process to streamline patient access?
Yeah, I think what's key here is, the technology is great, but let's look at the benefits of it really, right? So what does this really allow you to do? How does this really extract the potential to optimize and streamline your patient access? Because at the end of the day, I think, metrics such as cost and revenue are important, but patient care still is the primary driver, as it should be, right? So patient care and patient access. So the example that we just went over, it essentially allows you to minimize time taken for the entire referral intake process, and thus the subsequent tasks that follow, such as patient scheduling, checking verification benefits, and so on and so forth. So if we're able to do that, and if we're able to minimize time taken for some of these manually intensive processes, that we can, drastically reduce time using new technologies like NLP. I think at the end of the day, what it allows you to do is it allows you to schedule patients faster and schedule more patients, which means that patients have quicker access to care and more patients have quicker access to care.
You brought up such a good point. While yes, a lot of this manual effort, faxing, all of that is a headache for the practice, ultimately it comes down to being able to provide care faster. All right. Any parting words, last minute words of wisdom, calls to action for anyone listening?
Yeah, I think, there's always a little bit of inertia when it comes to some of these new technologies. I think when providers and practices are looking at vendors to partner with to solve some of these challenges by implementing some of these technologies, I think I'd always recommend to do some sort of proof of concept, educate yourself a little bit more about what is reality and what is more fiction, when it comes to AI and some of the capabilities of NLP. And I think that will position yourself extremely well to know what you're getting yourself into and what is the expected outcome of a project like this. I know at Infinix we are building some of these solutions, especially in the patient access realm, that use these cutting edge technologies to tackle patient access problems like prior auth verifications, and now document extraction and classification as well.
Great. I think that's all we've got for you today, Aakarsh. Thanks again for coming on and providing a lot of really valuable insight and calls to action for providers.
Great.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you back here next week. Thanks again, Aakarsh.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.